In this video, we'll talk about the big C in CSS, the cascade. As the acronym applies, the cascade is at the heart of CSS, and it's extremely important to its functioning. By definition, the CSS cascade takes an unordered list of declared values for a given property on a given element, sorts them by their declaration's precedence, and outputs a single value. Seems a little confusing, doesn't it? Let's break that down. Essentially, the CSS cascade is an algorithm that the browser uses to decide which CSS styles it should apply to various elements on the page. Here's an example. Looking at the code on the screen, you can see that there are two competing styles. First, an element with a class of text box that's assigned the color red, and then that same element assigned the color green. How will the browser know which one to apply? The rules of the CSS cascade tell the browser whether the text box class should be green or red. So, what are those rules? A CSS rule is a combination of two parts. The first part is the selector, which is a way of identifying HTML elements by their element names, class attribute, or ID attribute, among others. The CSS selector tells the browser which HTML elements should be affected by CSS property declarations. The second part is the CSS property declaration, which is the act of listing a CSS property name and providing a value for it. The CSS cascade algorithm assigns importance to a class by looking at three attributes: origin importance, selector, and order of appearance. Let's look at each of these individually. As you can probably guess, origin and importance refers to where the class originates and how important it is. Some styles are applied by the browser, but those are less important than the styles declared by the CSS that you want to write for the web page. It's possible you might have several style sheets or several declarations within style sheets that pertain to the same affected area of the web page. Items that come later in the declared list of styles take priority over those earlier in the document. Element selectors are on the bottom of the totem pole. ID selectors take precedence over class selectors, which in turn take precedence over element selectors, which are the least important here. Looking at the code on the screen, can you determine which color the button text is? If you guess blue, then you're right. The button text is blue because it's defined in the ID, and the ID selector takes precedence over the class and the element styles that are defined below it. Remember, IDs over classes and classes over elements. The order of appearance is really where the CSS cascade gets its name. You can think of CSS style importance as cascading like a waterfall. In other words, two styles with equal weights of importance will be evaluated based on the order of their appearance. The last style that's declared wins. As an example, let's look again at the text box class from earlier. According to the order of appearance rule, the color here would be green because it is declared last. To recap, the CSS cascade is an algorithm that determines the weight that styles carry and lets the browser determine which styles to apply. The cascade is what makes CSS so special. After all, without the cascade, CSS would be just SS. CSS is best learned by doing, but we hope that this video helps round out your understanding of it. Now back to the lesson.